The only thing that is worse than your parents going into your room and finding that t-shirt under your bed that is as stiff as a board would be you avoiding these players that I believe are the best picks inside of every single round of your 2025 fantasy football drafts. We're going through rounds 1 all the way through round 12. The last couple of rounds, there are way too many kickers and defenses to even make picks there, so that's why we're only doing rounds 1 through 12. Before we get on into things, though, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. While you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into my favorite pick in each round of your 2025 fantasy football drafts. We begin in round number 1 with consensus ADP sorted from websites like ESPN, Sleeper, and Yahoo. The first round is comprised of Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Genty, and Derrick Henry. And in my opinion, the best pick inside of round 1 is going to be Christian McCaffrey, running back of the San Francisco 49ers, current ADP from that consensus, running back number 4 at pick number 10. Now, Christian McCaffrey is by far and away the most risky pick going inside of the first round. If you wanted to be as safe as possible, then drafting Christian McCaffrey may not be for you. It may not be for the faint of heart. But to me, based upon everything that we have read about Christian McCaffrey, indicates that it is wheels up for 2025. ESPN's Nick Wagner reports that Christian McCaffrey was one of the few Niners stars to take reps in team drills during minicamp. McCaffrey also participated in every phase of organized team activities. All signs out of San Francisco have pointed to McCaffrey being perfectly healthy after missing most of the 2024 season with a bilateral Achilles tendonitis and eventually a season-ending PCL strain. 49ers offensive coordinator Clay Kubiak told reporters he plans on giving CMC the ball as much as we can this year, and Kyle Shanahan has been similarly optimistic. Now, I know, Nick, I was fooled. I was led astray by what Shanahan said last year, and rightfully so, right? If you drafted Christian McCaffrey where you did, he was a big fat bust when he came back. He was looking great, but he ends up getting hurt again, right? It was a terrible pick. But as you dive deeper and deeper into this scenario, it really does feel like you should be confident in Christian McCaffrey. According to Jeff Mueller, George Kittle dealt with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, tracked back to sometime between 2020 and 2023, and sought stem cell treatment. Hasn't had issues since. Christian McCaffrey did the same thing in 2024 and is fully healthy again, also healthy from the PCL strain. So if we go ahead and get to late August, early September when you're doing your fantasy drafts, and maybe the drumbeat isn't as positive on Christian McCaffrey. Maybe there is some legitimate reason, there's some legitimate concern to have, and you don't want to draft Christian McCaffrey, then sure. But as of right now, based on where we are sitting, based upon all of the news, it seems incredibly bullish on the projection for Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey has finished with 20 plus point per game in PPR in 5 of 8 seasons, and he has always been a top 12 running back in terms of points per game if he played 16 or more games. Again, I get that if you drafted Christian McCaffrey last year, you know, he ended the season on crutches. You ended your season on crutches because the guy fucked you so hard you couldn't walk until the next week, right? But Christian McCaffrey has that big upside. He has that league-winning upside. He has finishing multiple points per game higher than the running back 2 behind him. If he does finish as the RB1, the 49ers have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. You know who Christian McCaffrey is. I get there is inherent risk with him, but the upside is too high for me to avoid him inside of the first round. In round number 2, we're going to take a more safe approach, right? If you draft McCaffrey in the first round, you might want to be a little bit safer in the second round, but this is also a guy that has huge upside. And inside of the second round, we've got Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr., Devon Achane, Brock Bowers, A.J. Brown, Drizzy Drake London, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Ladd McConkey, Josh Allen, and Trey McBride. Now, previously, I have waxed poetically so heavily on the Devon Achane train, the Devon A train. So this time, we're going to switch things up and discuss Nico Collins. Both of those guys are kind of the 1A and 1B for me inside of the second round. Wide receiver 7 in current ADP at pick number 13. If you see on ESPN, you can actually get him at pick 17.2. Now, in terms of points per game, it has now been back-to-back years for Nico Collins inside of the top 10 in terms of points per game. He played 12 games last year. He suffered some injuries, but when the guy was healthy, he was looking like one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football. He had 99 targets, 8.3 per game, 68 receptions, one short of having 69. Very nice. I like 5.7 per game, 1,006 receiving yards, 83.8 per game, and 7 total touchdowns in 12 games. In terms of efficiency, this guy was one of the most efficient wide receivers in the National Football League last season. He was 3rd in yards per route run, 9th in yards per target, 7th in yards per team pass attempt, 3rd in dominator rating, and 5th in explosive rating. And the best part about Nico Collins this year is the wide receiver room isn't as cluttered. Going into last season, there was some concerns for many fantasy players about how often will Nico Collins be involved with the resurgence, the rise, the claim to fame that Tank Dell earned. And how is now Stefon Diggs joining the team? How is that going to affect the dichotomy of this wide receiver core? Does that mean that Nico Collins is going to absolutely reek to high heaven? And obviously that shouldn't have been a worry at all. Nico Collins has this big season when healthy, but now both Tank Dell and Stefon Diggs are not going to play this season for the Houston Texans. Tank Dell obviously gets hurt late into last season. He will not be able to play in 2025 unless they develop some super serum and he turns into fucking Captain America or something like that. And he's able to, or Superman, and just fix that all. That's not going to happen, right? So he's not going to be playing this year, and Stefon Diggs is now in New England with the Patriots and Drake May. So the wide receiver room right now is Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Christian Kirk, Jalen Newell, John Metchig, Xavier Hutchinson, right? And I like Jaden Higgins. I actually think Christian Kirk is a little bit underrated. I'm not going to sit here and give him some type of fellatio and pretend like Christian Kirk is this amazing wide receiver, but these are decent wide receiver 2-3s in my opinion, but none of those guys can hold the jockstrap of Nico Collins. I understand that we had a bit of a downward spiral of CJ Stroud last season, but I do believe that CJ Stroud plays better, and even with a version of CJ Stroud that wasn't at his best like we saw in his rookie season, we still saw a top 10 finish in terms of points per game for Nico Collins. So with all those other wide receivers gone, I really do believe the ceiling for Nico Collins is the wide receiver 1. I genuinely do believe he is one of the best receivers in the NFL, and this situation is chef's kiss, magnifique form. Next up, we move into round number 3. Lamar Jackson, Kyron Williams, T. Higgins, his teammate Chase Brown, Tyreek Hill, JSN, Jaden, Stormy Daniels, James Cook, Breece Hall, Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, and Davante Adams. I like a bunch of names inside the 3rd round, but my guy right now has to be Davante Adams. And if you are in a league where he falls into the 4th round, you should be clicking that button instantly. And even at the end of the 3rd round, I am ecstatic to draft Davante Adams, wide receiver 17, off the board based on current ADP at pick number 36. Now, last year was a bit weird for Davante Adams, right? He starts off his year as a Las Vegas Raider, and I'm telling people in drafts, you know what? I'm not the most confident in Davante Adams. He finishes as the wide receiver 37, 5, and then 53. And then he is quote-unquote hurt, gets traded to the Jets, and then things start to get a whole lot better for him. Now, is Davante Adams the same Davante Adams from a couple of years ago where he was unanimously considered one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the National Football League? In my opinion, there has been a slight dip-off, but not enough to where the fact that he's coming off the board as the wide receiver 17 isn't insane to me. I think you could make a good argument that he finishes inside the top 12, maybe even finishes inside the top 8 or inside of the top 5. Now, I get that Puka Nacua is on the team, but in my opinion, I see this kind of as a yin and a yang, right? How two guys can coexist. We saw last year, both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were able to put up huge seasons, and I believe something very similar is in store here with Puka and with Mr. Davante Adams. I don't think this is a parasitic relationship, meaning that Davante Adams is going to get all of his value eaten by Puka Nacua. I think they're both going to be able to succeed congruently together. 9 straight seasons as a top 15 point per game wide receiver with 8 of the last 9 seasons inside the top 12. And even with the switch of teams, and even with the Jets sucking complete and utter donkey dick, right? He still finishes inside the top 12 in terms of points per game. He was the wide receiver 9 in points per game last season. So Davante Adams does still have it. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he's still the same guy he was a couple years ago, but he is still a premier wide receiver at the NFL level. 14 total games played last year for Adams, 11 of those with the Jets. He had 141 targets, 9th, 85 receptions, 14th, 1,063 receiving yards, 15th, and 8 total touchdowns, 13th. Davante Adams is a ball hawk inside of the red zone. I know Kyren Williams was just snorting touchdowns for breakfast last season, but I don't think it's going to be as easy for him this year because I think they're going to like to use Davante Adams inside the red zone a ton. 13th in dominated rating, 17th in explosive rating. So I think with Sean McVay being such a great play caller, I think with Matthew Stafford being such a competent quarterback, that Davante Adams does have that path to greatly outscoring his current ADP. Next up, we move on into round number 4. Current round 4 is Marvin Harrison Jr., Rashee Rice, who we'll talk about for half a second. Rashee Rice is going to be suspended for what occurred in the offseason, I believe 2 years ago. It seemed as though they were going to push that off until be a suspension next season, but now it seems like 3 to 6-ish games now. We don't know for sure yet, so I'm not going to distinctly say, oh, Rashee Rice is definitely going to fall past the 4th round, but I do think in a lot of leagues, his value is plummeting just due to the fact that, hey, if you miss 3 to 6 fucking games, you got to move down in terms of ADP, even if we think when you are healthy, when you are starting, you are that good. So after Rashee Rice, George Kittle, Jalen Hurts, Mike Evans, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, Omarion Hampton, Wiki, DJ Moore, and Chuba Hubbard. My favorite pick in this round is Omarion Chris Breeze, Hampton, running back of the LA Superchargers, running back 18 at pick. Get your kicks on Route 66. Actually, it was pick 46. I was going to say Route 46, but that's not the song. So the report from a couple days ago was Chargers running back Najee Harris is expected to begin training camp on the non-football injury list. Harris suffered a superficial eye injury in a fireworks incident on the 4th of July and has been receiving special treatment from doctors at Stanford. And then yesterday, as you guys are watching this, today as I'm recording this, on Thursday, the Chargers put out, we have placed running back Najee Harris on the active/non-football injury list. So you need to take this into account in a big way. Now, if Najee Harris is back in practice next week, a couple of weeks from now, then in my opinion, it's kind of no harm, no foul if it's quick, right? But if it starts to take a while and now Omarion Hampton's getting all of the first team reps, he's going to start building a stronger case to week number 1, him to be the running back 1 on the team. Now, I loved Omarion Hampton inside of the 4th round, even when I felt as though maybe it would take a couple of weeks for him to get going, because I think ultimately, with how this offense is ran, with how J.K. Dobbins was able to produce last season, now he's in Denver, that there is very strong reason to believe, if you are a fan of Omarion Hampton, if you believed in Omarion Hampton, if you look at his tape and you think he looks good from UNC, that he should be able to, at least a couple of weeks into the season, eventually take over for Najee Harris. Now, is Najee Harris a complete and utter bum? No. Maybe the fact that he only has one eye, he has both eyes, but you get what I mean. Maybe that ends up fucking with things as well, but Najee Harris is fine, but Omarion Hampton's that good, right? You don't just draft a guy 22nd overall if you think Najee Harris is the second coming of Bo Jackson or something like that, right? They believe in Omarion Hampton, which is why they drafted him that high. This is a guy that was, again, the 22nd overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, first round draft capital, 13 games played at UNC at 21 years old, 281 carries for 1,660 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, and 15 touchdowns, 38 receptions for 373 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Sophomore season in 2023, 13 games, 253 carries, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, with 29 9 receptions for 222 yards and a touchdown. So if you believe in the Harbaugh offense, if you believe that the Chargers are going to be solid like I think they will be, then their running back one is a no-brainer. Again, it might still take some time, but I think ultimately when the season starts to matter, when you are in the middle of the fantasy season, when you're getting towards the fantasy playoffs, that is the guy that is going to be putting the team on his back. I think he has top 8 upside for the final, say, 10 weeks of the season or however. Once he takes over, I think he could easily be a top 6, top 8 running back through that stretch. Next up, we move into round number 5 with DK Metcalf, James Conner, Courtland Sutton, Xavier Worthy, Devontae Smith, Sam Laporta, Zay Flowers, Dave Montgomery, RJ Harvey, Jameson Williams, Patrick Mahomes, and George Pickens. For me, my favorite pick inside the 5th round is going to be Courtland Sutton, wide receiver of the Denver Broncos. Current ADP, wide receiver 23 at pick number 51. Before we talk about Courtland Sutton and the rest of the picks in today's video, though, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you'll receive your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Plus, you receive an email with my fantasy football draft rankings for 2025 once those release inside of August. If you don't know what Underdog is, it's the best place to play best ball this summer. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football, and that's it. It's the draft. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup at the end of every single week. It is great practice for your home league. Their biggest tournament, Best Ball Mania 6, 15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place. So make sure you guys do check that out. They also have contests at lower entry fees. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious. So back on in here with Courtland Sutton. Now, I was previously someone that felt kind of meh on Courtland Sutton. Now, I wasn't going to come on here in these videos and really hate on Courtland Sutton. Like, I didn't think if you're taking Courtland Sutton in the 5th round, you were an idiot. You deserve to get laughed at. Thumbs down, gladiator style, right? I didn't think that, but I also wasn't like, if you took Courtland Sutton, I was, getting so excited, I stand up from my computer desk and my pants fall down, right? I am bricked up at the thought of Courtland Sutton, but now I am starting to really, really like him. After I dove Michael Phelps style a lot further into the stats of Courtland Sutton. And it truly, really is a tale of 2 seasons last year with Courtland Sutton, because weeks 1 through 8, if you had Courtland Sutton, sure, he was getting all the snaps, and sure, he was the wide receiver 1 on the team. There wasn't even any question about that with Courtland Sutton, but he was only averaging 9.7 fantasy points per game in PPR from weeks 1 through 8, even with playing all of those snaps, getting 7.25 targets per game, but he's only getting 3.63 receptions, 47.13 receiving yards, and shit wasn't sweet. 0.25 receiving touchdowns per game, but in the second half of the season, it was like the beast woke up, right? It was like a new version of Courtland Sutton. Like, they had a clone of him sitting in one of those hyperbaric chambers, and then he comes out a different man. Weeks 9 through 18, 18.1 PPR points per game. He almost scored double the amount of fantasy points per game he was scoring through the first 9 weeks of the season. 86% snap share, 8.56 targets per game, 27% target share, 5.78 receptions, 78.22 receiving yards, 0.67 receiving touchdowns per game. So, with there being such a clear shift from early season to late season, I believe those late season numbers are more likely to repeat. Because if Courtland Sutton came out the gate hot, say he doesn't get hurt, he plays all 17 games, and then the latter half of the season, the guy is a complete and utter disaster, then maybe Courtland Sutton is washed. But when it happens in the reverse, there's a lot more signs pointing towards him being able to repeat that, especially with my confidence level in Bo Nix, the starting quarterback for the team, and how he developed throughout last season going into his sophomore year, as well as the head coach being Sean Payton, who I trust a ton. Now, they do have other options at wide receiver. They bring in Evan Ingram, and sure, that might be more competition than what he had last year, but I still do believe that Courtland Sutton is a shoo-in to average 8+ targets every single game. Last year, he had 135 targets, 13th, 81 receptions, 17th, 1,081 receiving yards, 13th, and 8 total touchdowns. So I think we are going to just get a more reliable version of Courtland Sutton compared to last season, and I definitely like him at ADP due to the offense that he is attached to. He's also really good at catching the football, 101.3% true catch rate, 8th. So as long as Bo Nix gets the ball relatively in his direction, he's going to catch that thing. Next up, we move into round number 6 with Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, and Ted doesn't like to be called Ted McMillan, he likes to be called T-Mac. Fine, T-Mac, Ted McMillan, TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift, Ron Jones, Jalen Waddle, Travion Henderson, Isaiah Pacheco, Quinshawn Judkins, Chris Godwin, Caleb Johnson, and Baker Mayfield. My favorite pick in this round 6 is going to be Notorious McMillan, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, T-Mac. Sleeper ADP, wide receiver 30 at pick number 62. Now, Ted McMillan is going to be a rookie. In his couple of years at Arizona, I really liked what I saw in terms of just watching the guy play football. And reception perception, Matt Harmon's reception perception definitely agrees with my eye test, right? I want to not just say, oh, I actually really like how this guy plays football. If you watch the tape, I'm going to give you guys some legitimate analytics, right? If you didn't feel like throwing on some fucking highlight tapes, 70.4% success rate versus man for Ted McMillan in 2024. 81% success rate versus zone, and 73.1% success rate versus press, 80th percentile. Matt Harmon says, I thought McMillan did his best work in the intermediate area of the field when he built up speed and showed fluidity on breaking routes. He sneaks up on you after the catch. He's the 8th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. 12 games played, 21 years old at Arizona, 84 receptions for 1,319 yards and 8 total touchdowns. Back in 2023, 13 games, 90 receptions, 1,402 yards, and 10 touchdowns. If you remember last season for the Carolina Panthers, it was really weird, right? Bryce Young, we kind of are hearing all the positive coaching remarks. Like, in my opinion, what I read made it seem like, hey, Bryce Young's really going to take that second-year leap, and things come out stalled. The metaphorical car of Bryce Young stalls. It's looking bad. It's looking like car crash central, and they bench his ass. Andy Dalton gets into the lead seat, and then Andy Dalton gets benched because he got into an actual car crash, and then they insert Bryce Young. So Bryce Young sucks, not good. It's not looking great. Andy Dalton plays okay. And then Bryce Young comes back, and now Bryce Young looks amazing. Now, are we going to pretend like Bryce Young was amazing all year? No, we're not going to do that because he wasn't. But in the second half, he really turned things on. And we saw old man Adam Thielen. We saw Adam Thielen put up legitimately good games last season. We saw Thielen rip off the wide receiver 6 up against the Bucks, the wide receiver 17 up against the Eagles, the week 16 up against the Cardinals, wide receiver 21, and week 17 up against the Bucks, wide receiver number 8. And I get they have other wide receivers on this team, right? The Panthers have a bunch of names, but no one that really stands out, in my opinion, except for McMillan, except for T-Mac. And in my opinion, just like this tweet says from Joe Orico, I do believe that, just like he says, that he's the best Panthers wide receiver by far. By far. Back-to-back Michael Jordan 96-97 seasons with 1,300 plus receiving yards and 130 plus targets. All 3 collegiate years, 15 plus yards per catch, 8 plus touchdown. Bryce Young, weeks 12 through 18. Weeks 12 through 18, 7th most total pass attempts, top 6 fantasy quarterback. So say what you want about Bryce Young being a midget. Say what you want about the fact that he probably can't see over the offensive line. Say what you want about the fact that he probably needs a step stool to look in the mirror when he goes and brushes his teeth. But when push comes to shove, Ted McMillan should be able to elevate his role into becoming the wide receiver 1 in terms of targets on this team. I love what the tape showed me on McMillan, and I am a big fan of the Panthers this year and a big fan of what I think Bryce Young is going to be able to do. Next up, we move into round number 7, where we've got Travis Kelce, Tony Pollard, Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, Jordan Addison Ray, Roma Dunze, Bo Nix, Mark Andrews, Deebo Samuel,
Brian Robinson,
and Tyrone Tracy. For me, the best pick inside the 7th round is going to be Calvin Ridley as the wide receiver 34 at pick 76. Now, last year, if you had Calvin Ridley, it was pretty bad, right? He did have some peak games where he really did pop off. Week 2 up against the Jets, he sauced up Sauce Gardner, wide receiver 6. Week number 8 up against Carlton Davis, he was the wide receiver 5. And then week 10 up against the Chargers, he went crazy as the wide receiver number 3. But ultimately, in between that greatness, there was a lot of bad games. Sure, there was, wide receiver 18 performance there as well, but there's games where he's scoring 0.9 fucking fantasy points up against the Colts, right? So if you had him, it was bad, rightfully so. But we don't just take last year's numbers and project them to be the next year's numbers because things change. Things are different, right? Mainly, the quarterback position is different. Will Levis last year made so many highlight plays, and they're not highlight plays, they're low light plays, right? Some of the funniest shit that happened last season had to do with Will Levis. It was comically bad. It was almost like you were watching a comedy movie about a quarterback. It was that funny, the shit that was happening. Like, he threw a pick, he fell to his knees, he looked up at the gods above and asked for forgiveness because of how shit he was playing. He was like, God, please help me because I'm clueless. That is what Will Levis was calling for because the guy was trash, bottom of the barrel play. And now he gets Cam Ward. And sure, maybe you don't think Cam Ward is this guaranteed top 10 NFL quarterback year 1. Maybe you don't think he's even that great of a prospect. I do, but maybe you don't think that. But even if you don't think that, you can acknowledge that the difference between Cam Ward and Will Levis is like the difference between LeBron James and some guy that plays in the G League, right? It's a very wide margin. The wide receiver room is, sure, a little bit different. They add in Tyler Lockett. They have some other pieces on this team as well, but Calvin Ridley is still the head honcho, the head of the table. Shout out Roman Reigns as the wide receiver 1. Calvin Ridley's stats are legitimately hilarious to look at last season, like the play of Will Levis, right? 120 targets, but only 64 receptions, 1,117 receiving yards, 5 total touchdowns. So in my opinion, the writing on the wall is that Calvin Ridley is still a talented wide receiver. He was 9th in explosive rating, 10th in yards per reception, 1st in unrealized air yards because, again, there were so many targets that were just not even in the same stratosphere as him, not on the same planet, not in the same galaxy. He was 91st in terms of target accuracy. So I think with the quarterback position getting better, it is going to be a lot easier to start Calvin Ridley this year. Having Calvin Ridley last year was like having a fucking sports car that you can only drive backwards, but the back windshield is blacked out. You actually can't see out of it. That's what it was like having Calvin Ridley last year. So I expect things to be a whole lot better this year. Next up, we got round number 8 with Cooper Kupp, Jaylen Warren, Khalil Shakira, Jawan Jennings, who's threatening to hold out because he wants a new contract. Tough look for him. Jacoby Myers, Evan Ingram, Matthew Golden, Scar, Kyler Murray, Stephon Diggs, Ricky Pearsall, Slick Rick, David Njoku, and Jaden Riley-Reed. My favorite pick in this round is Jacoby Myers, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders. Wide receiver 42 at pick 89. Now, if you are taking a lot of high upside picks early on at wide receiver running back, Jacoby Myers is this nice comfy click for your team late because he's coming off the board as the wide receiver 42. Wide receiver 42. And he has finished back-to-back years top 24 in terms of points per game at the wide receiver position, despite the fact that the guy basically always beats out his ADP. There are always people that are in deep sleep. They're in the REM sleep. They're like Snorlax passed out on Jacoby Myers. Over the last 3 seasons, Geno Smith is averaging 4,075 passing yards a season. Now, do I think Geno Smith is like amazing? No, I don't. So I think he's underrated a little bit. But if you compare Geno Smith to the lowlifes, the schlubs that have been throwing the rock to Jacoby Myers over the last couple of years in Vegas, it really is night and day comparing one to the other. 15 games played last year for Jacoby Myers. He had 129 targets, 8.6 per game, 15th in terms of targets. 87 receptions, 12th, 5.8 per game. 1,027 receiving yards, 68.5 per game, ranked 17th in total receiving yards. 49th in total touchdowns with just 4, but he was 15th in contested catch percentage, and he was 19th in expected points added. Just like Calvin Ridley, sure, there's other options around Jacoby Myers that might be different, like Jack Besh or Dante Thornton, but no one that's going to be stealing the crown as the wide receiver one on the team. And Nick, Brock Bowers is really good. You got to acknowledge Brock Bowers. Yeah, Brock Bowers was really good last year too, and still Jacoby Myers was getting close to 8 points. He was getting 8.6 targets a game. So I don't really think the targets are going to be something that should scare you away from Jacoby Myers. You're going to be seeing a lot of targets come his way. You've got a defense that isn't really all that good. So while, maybe the Pete Carroll brand of football is play some elite defense, I don't really project the Raiders to have some elite defense. The running game might be better with should definitely be way better with Ashton Genty compared to Zamir White and Sincere McCormick, who sounds like a fucking fake name, who was running the football for the team last year. So I think the team's going to be pretty decent, pretty mid-pack, and that's going to be way better than what you got out of the team last year. Next up, we got round number 9 with Travis Etienne, One-Eyed, Pirate Man, Najee Harris. It's a joke, obviously. I don't hope Najee Harris fucking loses his eye or something. That would be crazy to say. Obviously not. Janu Smith, Broncos, defense, Cam. I'm a scat, man, Javonte Williams, Brock Purdy, Ramondre Stevenson, Michael Pittman Jr., Brandon Ayuk, Zach Charbonnet, and Jared Goff. Quarterback 10 off the board. Brock Purdy is my guy in this round at pick 103. Now, I've been someone that has been a wait at quarterback guy for years. Now, if you want to pull the trigger on Josh Allen, Jaden Stormy Daniels, right, whoever, Jalen Hurts, whoever your guy is inside the top 4 rounds at quarterback, go ahead. Because frankly, I think you could win your league drafting Young Ho Koo in the first round, but I have found my most great success in fantasy drafts over the last years that I've been playing fantasy football ever since I was 8 years old. I'm now 26, drafting late round quarterbacks. And a guy like Brock Purdy has me feeling real nicey where he's coming off the board. Quarterback 10 in points per game last year, back-to-back seasons inside of the top 10 in terms of points per game. Now, he was able to do that last year despite the fact that the whole offense got wiped out. The line gets hurt. McCaffrey's barely playing. Who knows what the fuck Brandon Ayuk is doing right out there, just being nothing, like a fucking statue. Kittle, sure, he's playing, but, Juwan Jennings, Purcell's missing time. It's like, Purcell got fucking shot before last season. So, a lot of weird things going on, and still Purdy was able to keep his head above water again, even with the 49ers not being all that good. Brock Purdy also has sneaky rushing upside. Now, is he going to go out there and put some guy in the spin cycle? Is he going to stiff arm a poor bastard to Middle Earth, Derrick Henry style? Is he going to hit stick someone like what Mahomes did to Rashee Rice's knee last season? Probably not. But he was 12th in carries, 11th in rushing yards, and 7th in rushing touchdowns, all while passing pretty solidly. 17th in pass attempts. He was 10th in passing yards, 15th in passing touchdowns with 20 at a 4.4% rate. Now, I throw up the 4.4% rate because it's very important to understand that when a quarterback like Brock Purdy throws 4.4%, that's probably going to go up. But if a quarterback like Brock Purdy threw 8% passing touchdown rate, I'd say, hey, that's probably going to come spiraling back down to earth in the next season. 20 pass touchdowns, 12 interceptions. In terms of efficiency, he was 6th in QBR, 14th in red zone accuracy rating, 30 yards per attempt, and 8th in fantasy points per dropback. You are getting an offense that is loaded to the gills with talent. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and, the wide receiver core, who knows about Ayuk, but I think if Juwan Jennings is there, he's fine. Same thing goes with Ricky Purcell. So they've got talented weapons around Brock Purdy, and they have a great offensive caller inside of the regular season. Shanahan fucking doesn't know his head from his ass in the playoffs. He just, especially in the Super Bowl, he just forgets what he's doing. It's like he woke up in the morning and took a pill that made him fucking lower his IQ by 50. But, during the regular season, the guy's a genius. He's a guru of sorts, right? And I know, Nick, Brock Purdy isn't actually that good. Don't you know that, Nick? Well, quarterback EPA through the first 40 games. Notable quarterbacks game with minimum 10 plays. Data available since 1999. Look where Brock Purdy is. This also just shows you how great Pat Mahomes is. But Brock Purdy is near a guy like Peyton Manning, right? You're a quarterback that very underrated Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, right? These guys are near the top, right? And Brock Purdy is up there. Again, say what you want about them. Nick, they overpaid him. I don't think so. And I think Brock Purdy is going to be a straight up steal. bank robbery inside of the 9th round. In the 10th round, we got another quarterback, because if you didn't want to take Brock Purdy, then you better be taking this guy, Justin Fields, quarterback of the New York Jumbo Jets, ADP quarterback 13 at pick 1, number 12. Number 12. That makes sense. Pick 112. That round is comprised of Darnell, here comes the Mooney, Caleb Williams, Josh Downs, Justin Fields, Keon Coleman, Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Jordan, the numbers Mason, what do they mean? Tajay Spears, Tyler Warren, Emeka Egbuka, and Dickie Dak Prescott. Now, last year, he didn't really play 10 games, right? It says 10 games played. He came in a couple games, threw the ball a couple times, but he ultimately started 6 games last season. In those 6 games, he had 161 passing attempts for 1,106 passing yards and 5 passing touchdowns with 1 interception. He was 13th in carries with 62, 14th in rushing yards, again, in just 6 starts with 289, and 5 rushing touchdowns, 7th. If you do the quick math, or if you didn't envision that in your head, he had 10 touchdowns with 1 interception. 10 total touchdowns with 1 interception. He has been a top 9 point per game finisher in the last 2 seasons, 2023, 2022, when he's actually the starter. I know, Nick, Justin Fields isn't that good. Nick, I don't trust Justin Fields. Nick, Justin Fields is a bum. There's a reason why they got rid of him for Caleb Williams. I get that. I think Caleb Williams is better than Justin Fields, but Justin Fields is better at fantasy. Why? Because he runs the football. Running the football in fantasy football is overpowered. It is overpowered. Even in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues that attempt to nerf the quarterback position, it is still a very, very positive thing for your quarterback to run. Because you only have to run the ball, in most leagues, 10 yards to get a point. Whereas you have to throw the ball 25 yards to get a point. In a lot of leagues, you throw a touchdown, you get 4 points. You run in a touchdown, you get 6 points. Right? And if you look at last year, he played 6 total games as the starter in Pittsburgh. 3 of 6 games last year, he was a top 12 quarterback. Week 3 up against the Chargers, belt to ass, quarterback 12. The next week, he puts his nuts into the mouth of the Colts, quarterback 1, and then he finishes his Steelers time until they pulled him for Russell Wilson. He's the quarterback 7 up against the Raiders. Again, Justin Fields isn't all that good. Blah, 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 blah. The Steelers actually don't have all that many weapons, but, you know, the Jets only had Garrett Wilson, so now Justin Fields is going to be bad. That argument doesn't make any sense. People are going to say that, though. Justin Fields, again, rushing quarterbacks are overpowered in fantasy. Justin Fields is a steal where he's going. Justin Fields is 4th on the list of most quarterback rushing yards in the last 5 years. It's Lamar, Hurts, Allen, Fields, and Kyler. Lamar plays 72 games. He's number 1. Hurts, 77. He's number 2. Josh Allen, 83 games played. He has 3,001. Justin Fields, 2,509 in 50 games. Not that hard. Fantasy football is not rocket science. Really isn't. Next up, we move into round number 11 with Jaden Higgins, Brandon Aubrey. And the reason why we only went 13 rounds in, or actually it was 12 rounds in, is because once you start to get to this range, you've noticed already we talked about the Broncos defense. Kickers and defenses start coming off the board. But you guys are smart. You know to wait till the last 2 rounds to pick your kicker and defense. Jaden Higgins, Brandon Aubrey, Shad White, Holston Loveland, J.K. Dobbins, Dalton Kincaid, Drake May, Rashid Shaheed, Austin Eckler, Jordan, Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet, Hutton, and Trey Harris. My guy is J.K. Dobbins. I was J.K. Dobbins' guy last year. I was banging the drum for him. Hoorah! It's J.K. Dobbins season. And it went well. Now, he did suffer some injuries. He missed some time. He only played in 13 games. But 5 of 12 of his games last year, he finished inside of the top 10. Running back 4, week 1. Running back 5 in week number 2. Week number 9 up against the Browns. Running back 6. Week 11 up against the Bengals. Running back 10. Week 17 up against the Patriots. Running back number 10. So he did show off spurts last year. Now, the team has RJ Harvey, and I believe that RJ Harvey probably will have a better career than what J.K. Dobbins does. And RJ Harvey is not going to be a 0. He's not a no one. He is not an invisible factor. They didn't draft him as high as they did for him to be useless on the team, right? But early on, J.K. Dobbins might be able to hold off RJ Harvey. So I think early on the season, J.K. Dobbins is very live to finish top 12 over the first couple of weeks of the season. He could easily do that in a couple of games. Now, eventually they might, pass the torch to RJ Harvey, and that's fine. But I think you're getting an elite handcuff in this range, right? If J.K. Dobbins is healthy, if something happened to RJ Harvey, you are looking at great production for that time. If nothing happens to him, you're looking at great early season production and the potential for him to just hold off RJ Harvey from becoming the lead back on the team. Last year, stacked boxes don't matter for these running backs. Best yards per carry versus 8+ men in the box. 2024, J.K. Dobbins, 5.8 yards per carry versus 8+ men in the box. You load the box up, it don't matter for Mr. J.K. Dobbins. Again, what we saw last season is very, very positive to me that Dobbins is still solid. Again, the guy gets hurt lacing up his cleats. He'll probably get hurt next year, knock on wood. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, and I would never guarantee anything. But if you're going to guarantee something in the NFL and you said J.K. Dobbins was going to miss a couple of games, that's probably one of the best guarantees you can fucking make. But even with all that, I love his value right now inside the 11th round because the injury risk is nothing in the 11th round. Because guess what? If he gets hurt instantly, if he does go and he walks onto the private jet that the Chargers take and he stubs his toe and he's out for the season with an ingrown toenail, guess what? In the 11th round, you just cut him. You pick someone new up off the waiver wire. Final round here, going to be round number 12. Jake Ferguson, tight end of the Dallas Cowboys, tight end 16 at pick 136. Now, inside of this round, I am kind of fine with talking about Christian Kirk. I like Christian Kirk as well. I think Jaden Bonnie Blue's pretty interesting as well, but I like Tank Bigsby as well. If you're really waiting at tight end, I think Ferguson is good enough before it starts to really fall off, because while there is a fall off after, the top 3, then there's a big tier. Once you get kind of past Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson, it does start to feel a whole lot more gross. Like you're plugging your nose starting one of those guys in week number 1. Now, Jake Ferguson, last year, pretty bad, right? Rightfully so. Dak doesn't play every single game. He gets hurt. Jake Ferguson gets hurt. But back in 2023, 17 games played, 71 receptions, 102 targets. He had 761 receiving yards, 5 total touchdowns, 10.4 fantasy points per game, 10th in PPR. Last year, 14 games played. He missed 1 game with a bone bruise, 2 games with a concussion. He was 10th in targets, 12th in receptions, 20th in receiving yards, only 0 total touchdowns, despite being 8th in true catch rate, 38th in target quality ratings. Quarterback situation was just really bad after Dak, and then 35th in catchable target rate. Highlighted are the 7 games with Dak Prescott on your screen, and 4 of 7 of those games, we saw him finish inside of the top 8, and only 1 top 12 finish without Dak Prescott for Mr. Ferguson. So with Dak healthy, I just think if you're going for a tight end outside of the top 12, if you're really punting the tight end position, I think Jake Ferguson is a great add at tight end number 16. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. Let me know down below in the comment section who your guys' favorite pick is inside of the top 3 rounds. And while you're down there, make sure you guys leave a like on today's video. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen already. And make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious. Get that free pick plus your deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash if you are new, plus receiving my draft guide. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.